We're following breaking news this morning. New York Congressman George Santos is officially in custody. The charges he is facing include money laundering, theft of public funds, fraud, and making false statements. He is expected to be arraigned at 1 p.m. Eastern. For more on this, I want to bring in CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson. So, Jessica, we spoke in the last hour. We were then speculating on the charges. Now we know what they are. What do you make of them?
This is about what we talked about, and this goes to the heart of his ability to be a public servant. The first charges up here, these wire fraud charges, basically make him worse than the infamous Nigerian prince who emails you and says, I'm a Nigerian prince. I just need you to hold this money, and then I need your funds, but I'm going to give you a lot in return. In this case, it's a slight iteration on this scheme, and arguably worse, but it's the same idea. He's saying to contributors, I need your money, or he's asking somebody to say that. I need your money. Give to this 501c4, which is basically a PAC, and the PAC will help elect Santos. But when they get money, it goes into a bank account. It's not even a 501c4. It's never going to be used for Santos's campaign. It's going to be used for Santos. And that's where we get the banking fraud come in. That's where we get the transfer of money from company A that looks like, based on the indictment here, is alleged to be just a fraudulent company, and goes into Santos's bank account so he can use it for personal expenses. I mean, the very first class I ever taught was campaign finance law, and I would never have written an exam like this because it's just too obvious. People tend to be sneakier and better at it than this, and that's why we're seeing this indictment so quickly. Other crimes here that go to the heart of his ability to be a public servant, the idea that he's lying on House disclosure forms, that he's understating his compensation, his salary in some cases, and then just not listing other forms of salary in others. And then there's a quote unquote, run-of-the-mill fraud allegation here, which doesn't have to do with him being a member of Congress, but has to do with him allegedly being someone who takes government property in the form of saying, I'm entitled to unemployment benefits, but he really wasn't. Yeah,
he earned $120,000, which is a felony offense, as you know, Jessica, because he is now accused of collecting fraudulently these unemployment benefits. Meanwhile, as a congressman, he's demanding strict work requirements for Medicaid beneficiaries, while on the same token now being accused of stealing.
Wow. So we know that, campaign finance violations are taken pretty seriously because they kind of sort of go to the heart of, the constituents' trust in the system, right? So based on sort of what we're hearing right now, if convicted on any one or all of these, what sort of sentence would he be facing?
So obviously it's hypothetical, but right now it still holds what we talked about before, which is potentially decades in federal prison. I don't know that it would be that long, but if you look at the indictment here, it looks like they have the receipts. This is not, we think, we hope, let's file this and see what happens, which frankly, the federal government very, very, very rarely does and should never do. This is, here are the documents that allow us to prove our case. And I think that it is possible that we could see a plea deal where we could see, obviously, he decides that he doesn't want to go to trial. The federal government, again, lots of documents just listed in the indictment. And he says, I will agree to less time in federal prison and I will plead guilty to X, Y, and Z. I suspect that that would be more likely in this case.
So the least of his worries, I'm guessing, Jessica, is the embellishment of his resume, right? At what point does lying about where you went to school, lying about where you worked or who you worked for?
Everyone lies.
Everybody
on their
lies.
resume,
Everybody says that they were straight A students.
That's what he said.
Right. And that, I worked for not this company,
volleyball scholarship.
Volleyball. Can't make this up. But at what point does embellishment become a crime? For example, could it be a crime if you use the fact that you worked, let's say, for a company to gain services?
So that's where it depends. I mean, I could say I was the national champion of the badminton league 3 years running on live TV, and there's really very few repercussions to that, other than I assume this would be my last time on live TV. But when you try and get something specific in return for the lie, then we can potentially be seeing some sort of criminal behavior. But again, people do lie, and they lie in order to try and be elected to the highest offices, and that's not necessarily criminal. I made some of the best deals in business that you've ever seen before. I'm worth billions of dollars. I've never done X, Y, and Z. So I don't mean to obfuscate when it comes to your question, but it really depends on what you're asking for in return for that lie.
All right, Jessica, thank you so much.